It's time for Windows Weekly, and stand back. Mary Jo Foley is hot under the collar about Windows 2004. We'll also talk about the other big drama this week with WinGet, Microsoft Edge, Microsoft 365. There's even Xbox news. Stay tuned. Windows Weekly is next. Windows Weekly comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes enterprise-level security simple for your remote workforce. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 675, recorded Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. Okay, Mr. Mxyzptlk. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Thinking about moving your data storage to the cloud? Wasabi is enterprise-class cloud storage at 1/5 the price of Amazon S3 and faster than the competition, with no fees for egress or API requests, and none of those complex storage tiers either. Start a free trial at wasabi.com. Enter the code WINDOWS. And by Barracuda. Did you know that 91% of all cyber attacks start with an email? To uncover the threats hiding in your Office 365 account, get a secure and free email threat scan at barracuda.com/windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show we gather together with two of the best Windows Microsoft journalists in the world and chew the fat. chew the H21 whatever the hell it is that we're doing here. That's Mary Jo Foley from allaboutmicrosoft.com, a fine ZDNet blog devoted, guess what, to Microsoft. Hi, Mary Jo.
Hi, Leo.
Ensconced in her New York flat.
Yep.
It's
like a turret. I just can watch things happen.
I bet that's fun, actually. Yeah, this is something to see. The more TV out the window these days.
Yeah, sometimes more fun than others.
Yeah,
but yeah.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. All the Swarovski crystals strewn down the streets.
Exactly. Barbarians.
Trailing Air Force Ones behind them. That is Paul Thurrott. He is in Lower Macungie Township in the beautiful Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And together, he's of course a blogger as well, but together they cover the Windows and Microsoft beat. And we do get together every week.
The yin and the yang of Microsoft coverage.
As Paul said, this is the one event of the week where he actually has to,
It's kind of weird.
Be here at a particular time.
They can't see it.
His pants, they can't see it. I'm wearing cufflinks. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Sometimes.
Making it classy, right?
Class it up.
I put on a
Class it up
button-down
around
shirt
here.
once in 2.5 months.
You don't wear collared shirts, huh? It's all T-shirts all the time.
Well, when I go out, I do, but no, we don't go out.
We don't go out. Yeah. I found myself of late, about 5 or 6, looking up and realizing I'm still wearing my jammies.
Yep.
I haven't showered. I haven't combed my hair or brushed my teeth. I am still wearing my jammies.
Yeah.
Well, that's life. Life in the 21st century. What a weird.
Oh, we're going to look back on this, and we're not going to laugh. I can tell you that.
No. Gosh, I hope we can look back on it and say those are the worst times, not, oh, boy, I wish we'd go back to the 2020.
Yeah.
Man,
Right.
I have a feeling
Right.
it could go either way at this point. It's like,
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
these might
Hope
be
not.
the good times we look
The good
back
old
upon.
days.
Yeah. Remember when you could
Sure.
Don't
still
say
get
that.
food?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember when the power
Yep.
worked, the electricity worked? Weren't those days great? You get a hot shower. You didn't have to either, which is beautiful. No, let's stop talking about this dystopia that we have ventured into.
Yeah, let's
Instead-
leave that to Isaac Asimov and
Yeah,
whoever
that's our
else.
problem, Paul. You and I read too much science fiction.
I know, we know how this turns out.
We know this story.
The whole story's been plotted out for us,
Yeah.
and I can tell you, it does not end well.
No,
it's
guys,
not
no,
that
no,
one.
no.
I have hope. I have hope. And you know what? let me see. Okay. Last week we announced that Windows 10 2004 general availability had begun.
Yep.
Which means this week, if all goes as planned,
Sure.
this is when we start screaming and yelling and saying, "What the hell?"
Actually, so we're going to turn this on its head in two ways. One is because I want Mary Jo to go through this in a really rare occurrence. I feel like she's a little more emotional about this one than I am.
Oh boy! Wow.
I know. I think.
Really?
I know. That sounds weird. Also, I'd like to announce that I have located the one person who received this update. Naturally, his name is
too.
Stan.
I know. He tweeted to us yesterday, right?
Stan got it. I got it.
Yep.
Anyway,
So
Yep.
even if you
I
were
know.
a seeker, you didn't get it?
So if you were,
one of the hilarious things that's happened. Yeah.
I know. Right. So last week we said it was going to be a staged rollout. It was first going to go to people who were seekers. It turns out when people started seeking it, many people could not find it because it was blocked. And it was blocked for a bunch of reasons. I'd say the majority of which did not show up or were not cited during the insider testing period, which is really strange.
It was very strange.
Especially for people like me who have a Surface Laptop 3 or a Surface Pro 7, because these are always on, always connected devices. I guess there was some problem with Windows 10 2004 and those devices, although you would have to assume many people were testing Windows.
Are you saying that Microsoft didn't test its own hardware?
What you're suggesting, Leo, is ludicrous.
Ludicrous.
I know.
And yet,
yes. But also, not just Microsoft, but wouldn't you assume many people in the insider program would be running Surface hardware and testing with Surface hardware? Yes.
I think there's a matrix of these people that they like Microsoft, they buy Microsoft hardware, they participate in the insider program. To that, Mary Jo, I say, yes, obviously.
I think this is inconceivable.
So, one of the errors that they're blocking for, it says unexpected restarts for some devices using always on, always connected. So that's Surface Pro 7, Surface Laptop 3. It may also be Surface Book 3.
Oh, my God.
Which are all the latest hardware releases coming out of Microsoft that I would assume not just Microsoft employees, but insiders were running. Yet this is one of the reasons you get a block on your machine. And I have a block on mine right now.
Wow.
I was going to live on the edge a little and do a Windows update check for updates. And then I saw a message come up saying, nope, you can't have it. Sorry.
Wow.
We advise you not to get it because you have a Surface Laptop 3.
I get. Like, I understand this complaint. And because if you were to poll Windows or Surface customers and say, why did you buy this thing?
Right.
Part of it, even though they might not express it in quite this way, is it's a Microsoft device. I want to be on that train where I'm getting the latest stuff. And like, I think that a lot of people who buy Surface devices have that expectation, and it's a reasonable expectation. If you were, imagine, I think I might have used this example recently, but imagine if Google announced, hey, here's Android 11. It's shipping on this group of Samsung devices. It's shipping on these Sony devices. It's shipping on these LG devices. It's not shipping on any Google devices. Like, imagine that. It's inconceivable, like Leo said. It's inconceivable. And yet, of course, Microsoft didn't do it that way because Microsoft, in addition to not being able to ship software, apparently can't communicate either. So they just didn't ship it to Surface devices. They didn't say anything. They just didn't do it. And but then over the weekend, that update message showed up. Like, it didn't show up originally, right? It showed up later. Yes.
And so when you get this message, like I have on mine, it says, May 2020 update is on its way. We're offering this update to compatible devices, but your device isn't quite ready for it. Once your device is ready, you'll see the update.
Imagine if you got a mail in the mail, a letter from the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes that said, you're not a winner.
You're not a winner. You're a loser.
Fact. You are not a winner. You can open this. You can read all you want. You're not winning anything. Like, that's what kind of a crazy. It's like, we see you clicking check for updates. Stop. You're not getting it. We told you to seek it if you wanted it. Now we're telling you to stop.
Right.
I mean, I guess for the types of people No, actually, it makes no sense. If you're a normal human being, you don't need to see that. You don't need to see it. An update may be
I'm glad I saw it though, because I actually tried to seek. And
okay,
no, but
it was good that it showed up.
Not a normal human being now.
That's the second scenario. So I guess yes, if you seek. If you sought this up, that sounds weird, but and yes, at least it would be nice though. They could tell you what it was. If they're going to provide you this, you're not getting it yet.
Yeah.
Maybe say, look, you have
why.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, they know why.
No, you have to pick from like 12 things that are on the release information status page. So it might be any of these 12 things that are blocking you, right?
Okay. Something though.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
So I mean, some of them are like, you get a stop error when plugging or unplugging a Thunderbolt dock. And people are like, is that what's happening? Like, no, I don't think so.
It's not showing this to you so you can troubleshoot it. The idea is we tested this update for an unbelievable amount of time, 15 months plus.
Yeah.
We're now going to ship it out as slowly as we can and to ensure that people have a good experience. I guess what I'm asking as sort of a devil's advocate is, isn't that fine? I mean, does this sort of prove that this system works?
So, yeah, I would say it's better that they're blocking people than letting people have a bad experience. Like if I suddenly sought the 2004 update, I got it, and then suddenly I was having unexpected blue screens and restarts, that would be problematic, and I would be very, very unhappy.
Microsoft never wants anyone to have a bad experience. But I mean, but does this also betray some problem in the testing process, right? Like, how did we get to the point where this thing was ready to ship, but it really kind of isn't ready to ship? No one really outside of Microsoft has a handle on what percentage of devices out in the world are compatible today versus incompatible.
Yeah.
Whether it's, but I haven't heard from a lot of people who've gotten this for sure.
Well, we just got one other guy who just tweeted to us during the show. So now we know 2 people who got it.
Right, so if you were to divide,
Kent Curry said he got it.
So 2 divided by 1 billion, what percentage is that? I mean, it's.
No, there are more people than that. But I've been asking around kind of quietly saying, okay, what happened? Like, how did these 12 things show up after you guys had like at least 6 additional months beyond the usual testing period to test?
I don't think those were new surprises. I think this was something that they had internally, and they knew at some point that they were going to ship this thing without those things being fixed, and they just weren't communicating it.
Yeah. What I heard, I'll tell you what I heard, which is also a little disconcerting if this is true, is that these were discovered during the release preview ring rollout. Okay, when did that start happening? That was like a while ago, right? Didn't it go to release preview like over a month or 2 ago? And so if it did show up in release preview testing, you would think that they would have communicated that if they were good at communicating, right? So
right.
Maybe,
but they didn't say it.
What if it's a bug that is blocking, but it's wrong? Like that's the bug,
Yeah.
Because that's newer software, right?
It lists all these things as they are investigating them, right? It doesn't say, and a lot of them are they're worded in a way that it's saying it might affect you, but it might not.
We don't know, yeah.
Well, here's something to think about. We just brought up this theory, which I think is valid, that Surface owners, and insiders, there's a big nexus of those people. There must have been a lot of Surface devices in the insider program testing this release.
Yep.
They were installing multiple builds. Most of those people probably are fine. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, their machines are fine.
Right.
If they're not, they would have been complaining.
Agree.
So what's going on?
I know. And so then if you look at the release information management page for 2004, so as they're investigating it, like all these investigations were listed as starting May 27th, right? And they have refined the descriptions of some of them. So now the always on, always connected one says devices with more than one always on, always connected capable network adapter might have issues. So they're narrowing down who is in the group who has the problem, right? As time is going by, like that page is changing, right?
I know this is unusual for me. Maybe I'm just getting I'm checking out during the pandemic or something. But I'm not outraged by this. I mean,
I'm not outraged.
Right. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to suggest that you were. But I mean, I typically would get a little up in the air about this. But I mean, I find it to be curious.
I do too.
Right.
I would like an answer, a public answer, why these 12 things showed up. Right. Like, I just would like to know, I guess, so that when people ask me why is my machine not getting it, I could say, well, Microsoft said they found these issues when they started doing blah, blah, blah. Like, I'd like to have an answer for people more than like I'm just mad that I can't have it, because I don't really care if I have it. I mean, to be honest,
I think the reality of this is going to be that in a year from now, after 20H2 has also shipped, and these things are essentially the same thing,
right?
That these versions of Windows, which are essentially this version of Windows, will be deployed on the majority of Windows 10 PCs out in the world, and we will have forgotten this however long period at the beginning where, for some reason, this happened. I'm going to guess that that's how it goes. I mean, in the scheme of things, not a big deal.
I know. It's not a big deal. I know. I knew you didn't think it was a big deal because you didn't christen this a gate. I was waiting for you to have a headline saying 2004 gate. I'm like, where's his headline? It's not there.
I honestly, I don't know if I have this in the note. I don't think I put this in the notes. I tweeted something the other day about the version number. I still get things from people who are really upset that it's called 2004, right?
Yeah.
And because it reminds them of Windows Server 2003, which of course is 17 years old, and this never makes sense to them. And I said, I guess we all have our theories about naming and branding and how they could do versioning, whatever. If they wanted to stick to this 20.0, thing, 20H1, 20H2, whatever, they put a period in the middle of it, 20.04, like Ubuntu does. Just make it obvious what you're talking. It keeps the format, and it makes it less like the old yearly naming style, But but again, not outraged. Just don't, No,
I'm not outraged about the naming. It's just it's so convoluted, because when people ask you about it, they'll sometimes say the May update, or they'll say Vibranium, or they'll say 20H1, or they'll say 2004, and like there's so many ways to refer to it. And then you go back and forth with them. Like, do you mean the May feature update? Or like when you're asking this question, or what do you mean? Like, what are you asking me about? So it's just a little tiresome.
Yeah.
But the
whole thing's tiresome. We were dealing with this from, remember, the Creators update and the Fall Creators update. It's like, guys, why do you give things stupid names? Just, I don't know.
It's more concerning because it's like, shouldn't they have figured this out? It's just a little concerning.
It feels like every time this comes up, right? Yeah. And then people are like, what are we talking about?
And I think,
I'm like,
I think you're more upset, Mary Jo, because finally you decided to be a seeker. I
know. I kind of feel like that.
You were thwarted.
I do too.
Well,
I was like, you know what? For once, I'm going to be a seeker, just for once.
Yeah. But you need to understand the pain that's involved with being this kind of person.
This is it. This is part of it.
This is what it's like.
This is the fun.
Literally frustration. Yeah.
I don't even know why I thought about seeking it, because I can't think of anything in it that I really want.
If you can't explain it now, wait till you actually get it, and then you're really going to wonder.
I know, and I'll be like, wait, what's new in this? No, you know what I really wanted? I wanted Windows subsystem for Linux too. I didn't want people to know.
Oh,
that's what I wanted. But that's why I wanted
or something.
You wanted WinGet. That's what you wanted. You were excited about WinGet.
I was more excited about Ubuntu.
Ooh, wow! I love it when you talk like that.
You're going to get your name in a box if you're not careful. I was more excited by Ubuntu than Mary Jo Foley.
I'll be starting up all about Linux.com.
Book or something.
I'm tempted. I've been tempted, I'll have to say.
Been writing about Windows for 24 years, but I'm really excited about Ubuntu.
Yeah.
It's time to change.
Yeah, time to change.
I wanted Windows Terminal 1.0. I did.
You wanted the Nyan Cat wallpaper.
That's what I wanted.
Yep. You wanted your lights in your apartment to change colors with the Windows background. All the good stuff that we really want with Windows. That's stuff that really makes a difference. Yeah, it is going to be ironic that after all this, you're going to get it and go, oh.
I know.
Well,
no, I know that's what it will be, but it'll be okay.
What are the big notepads improvements, though? Are there? Oh, you can. I hear you can zoom.
Okay. Oh, actually, you know what? Okay.
Oh no! Don't go
We're
there.
going to regress this. I had some fallout rage last week that some people took seriously. Guys, seriously, get over yourselves. It turns out Zoom was in Notepad already, and that explains why it was also in my application. It's not one of the features I added, differently, whatever. That I don't remember that is, of course, a factor of my age and complete ambivalence during the COVID and pandemic. So, sorry. I'll take that one off the whole board. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah. People took that very seriously. The allegations.
Well,
maybe because we went on a bit about it.
Just a bit
about things.
I don't understand my form of humor, but it involves repetition over time. It's kind of a...
Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to take a little break, and then we will come back with the outrage of the week.
Yes, the other outrage.
There has to be some outrage.
There's some outrage.
You have to have some outrage.
Yeah.
It'd be Wednesday if it wasn't an outrage.
The outrage of the week, ladies and gentlemen. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It's gripping. But first, a word from Wasabi, that hot stuff you have on the sushi. The green ball that comes with your sushi. No, that's not the Wasabi we're talking about. We're talking about something hot, though. Wasabi hot cloud storage. They do actually have a Wasabi ball, but that's another story. I'll get to that in a second. Wasabi is the best hot cloud storage because it is, I don't even know where to start. There's so many reasons. How about, I'll start with the obvious. It's 80% cheaper than Amazon S3. One-fifth the cost. It's about 6 times faster than S3. Uses the S3 API. Doesn't have all those complex storage tiers of S3. But honestly, the real reason to use Wasabi is because at that price, it's actually both more affordable and I would argue much more secure than on-premises storage. There are lots of companies that are buying hard drives every week. We need more storage. They're buying SANs for tens of thousands of dollars. In most cases, you can store Wasabi, your data on Wasabi in the cloud for less than just the maintenance fees. The maintenance fees on the same amount of storage in your office. It's that much less expensive. And I'm going to argue it's more secure. Here, I'll give you a couple of reasons. 11 nines of durability. That means, on average, you'd lose one file every 649,000 years. That's not even going to happen because, see, one of the advantages of cloud storage, they're running regular integrity checks on your data. Every object stored in Wasabi is checked for integrity every 90 days. You do that on your on-prem? No, you don't. And it's redundant already. Wasabi stores your data in Tier 4 data centers, facilities that are not only highly secure, but they're fully redundant. So there are multiple copies. You might say, well, what about security? I don't want multiple. No, it's encrypted. In fact, even if you don't request encryption, Wasabi is always encrypted at rest. Industry best practices for security. HIPAA compliant, FINRA compliant, CJIS compliant. That should tell you something. I love the fact that you can say, and this is something you can't do on-prem either. You could, I guess, with some effort, but this is built into Wasabi. You can say, this or all my data is immutable. It cannot be modified by hackers, by malware, by fumble-fingered employees. It's immutable. That's great. This is really done right. Now, I mentioned how affordable it is, 80% less than S3. I can make it even more affordable. If you pay as you go, it's one-fifth the cost of S3. You can save even more when you use their reserved capacity storage. If you're in the situation where you're buying more, because you're always accumulating more data, so you're buying more storage all the time, you know what you're going to need going forward. You can use Wasabi's reserved capacity storage. Now, this is kind of like buying on-prem. You basically reserve cloud storage in 1, 3, or 5 year increments. The more you buy, the longer the term, the greater the discount. You're going to save even more. You know you're going to be using that. So save. I think this is, this is why it's good to be, number 2. What was that Avis used to say? We try harder. Wasabi knows your boss is saying, well, what about Microsoft, Google, and Amazon? What about them? So they've got to do a better job. They've got to be more affordable, more secure, easier to use. For instance, S3 charges for egress. You know, that's always the surprise, right? You store the stuff on S3 and then you want it back. Oh, we're going to charge you for that. Those bills can be very surprising. Boston like that. The API calls, its API is identical to S3's, but they don't charge you for the API calls. I think Wasabi is brilliant. The problem is nobody's ever heard of it. So we're doing our best to tell the world. In fact, now I can't even say that now because now I hear from more and more people all the time and say, yeah, you told me about Wasabi. I've been using it. It's awesome. This is highly secure, disruptive technology turning the industry on its ear. 80% cheaper, up to 6 times faster than the industry leader. You calculate the savings for yourself. So you start a free trial of storage for a month right now when you go to wasabi.com, wasabi.com. Click the free trial and enter the code Windows. And yes, there's a Wasabi ball. They will send you, if you want, if you have a lot of data, they'll send you a Wasabi ball, which you put your data on. You send it back to them. Join the movement. Migrate your data to the cloud with confidence. wasabi.com. Click the free trial link. Enter the offer code Windows. Please use that offer link. Don't say Twit or something else. We want Wasabi to know you heard it on Windows Weekly. Give credit to these fine folk sitting back here, pretending they're not indignant over what happened to the creator of AppGet. Shocking.
Well, that one, I'm a little indignant about this one.
So this is kind of Bill Gatesy and kind of classic Microsoft behavior.
Yeah, and we joke about how we kind of miss the old Microsoft, but then something like this happens, and you kind of realize that's not really funny. You know,
yeah, sure.
it's really.
So what happened?
So basically, there's a developer who created something called AppGet, kind of a side project, open source, et cetera, et cetera. Microsoft contacted him last summer and said, hey, we really love the work you did. We're thinking about putting a package manager in Windows. We'd like to pick your brain about it. Would you mind meeting with us in person, which they did, I think, up in Vancouver last July, August, whenever it was. And it went great. And then they said, you know, maybe we should just put this into Windows and hire you, and you could maintain it at Microsoft. Wouldn't that be neat? And he said, that would be neat. And they kind of went back and forth over what that would look like, and he finally agreed. And then Microsoft ghosted him for 6 months and never replied to any of his emails. Yeah, 6 months.
Ghosted him. Wow.
And then the night before build, he got an email from the guy at Microsoft, Andrew, who said, hey, just wanted to let you know we're going to be releasing this thing called the Windows Package Manager tomorrow. Thanks for all your work.
Looks just like yours.
Yeah, looks a lot like. Now
his was open source, right?
I think so, yeah.
It is.
I've gotten a lot of interesting feedback from people who don't see what the problem is here, you know, that this is how open source works.
Yeah, they forked
it.
Yeah.
So the issue is that they courted the guy and offered him a job and then ghosted him.
That's
right. That's
rude.
the problem I have. They let him on, and that's unethical.
Although,
yes,
if you read his blog post, I don't know if he was just justifying the fact that he didn't get an offer from them, or if he decided he really wasn't that interested. But he says a couple things like, I wasn't really sure after I met with them that I really wanted to work for them because I was going to have to leave Vancouver and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's interesting. So maybe they couldn't come to terms.
You know, Vancouver to Seattle.
It's very close to Seattle.
Than me to you.
4 hours.
I mean, it's.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. It's a little further, actually. But
yeah.
So
no, and Microsoft has a big operation in Vancouver also, which maybe he could have worked there, right? I was a little, you know, and it's hard sometimes to read somebody's words and decide, is he putting a good face on something and he's really mad, or is he really not that mad?
He didn't come off as indignant, or you know.
He didn't.
He came off sort of like, I feel like I kind of need to, you know, communicate this, you know.
And I feel like if they had given him more acknowledgement when they announced WinGet and they said, by the way, we were heavily inspired by this guy, maybe that would have been enough.
Yeah. We forked AppGet and we've created WinGet.
Honestly, right.
We're very impressed with what he did. How close is what they did to what he did?
That's what I don't know.
Yeah, I can't. I don't want to state that.
I saw varying comments on that. I saw some people saying, "Oh my gosh, it's a direct ripoff," and other people saying it doesn't even look like it at all. Right? So I'm like, I don't know. Like,
is Microsoft's version open source?
So now what they're saying now is they are going to open source it.
Okay, because they may have, I don't know what license he used, but they may have some requirements.
So the issue, so aside from the ghosting issue, which again to me is the bigger problem, the person that kind of screwed him over at Microsoft came out with a little blog post yesterday or the day before. It does not address the ghosting or the job offer at all, and basically just apologizes for not giving him more credit, and if anything, just admits that we totally stole from they didn't say steal, but this was clearly the inspiration. The way they announced it is they kind of said, inspired by other package managers, and they listed a few of them, we made this thing, when in fact the thing they made was inspired by one package manager. It was this AppGet thing. And so they kind of said, we should have given him more credit. It's like, that's one of the things you should have done.
But did you see what he did on GitHub 2 days ago? We're talking about Kevin Beigi, I think is how he would pronounce his name, the creator. He said, he thanked Microsoft for the blog post, saying they should have given him more credit. And then he said, there are a few areas Andrew and I have been discussing, and hopefully we'll have more to share with you guys soon. So I'm like,
so in other words,
so what's going to happen now?
They've talked privately, clearly.
So his stuff is Apache license 2.0, which means it's allowed that you could fork it for commercial use, you can modify it, you can distribute it. It does require the preservation of the copyright and license notices. But that's kind of weird, because if you don't open source it, I don't know where you'd put those. Maybe in the about box. So maybe they haven't lived up to the license, which I'm sure they will attempt to do, because that's the right thing to do. I'm glad they're giving him credit, but it is, you can fork any open source license.
Yes.
Open source product.
If you take it a step back, though, the problem is the Microsoft of 1992 or whatever year, this is the type of thing they would have done, embrace, extend, whatever. I know that it's allowed by the open source license. Okay, fine. Microsoft today is a completely different company than it was in the 90s, completely different. And they are an inclusive, accessible company. They have embraced open source, you could argue, almost more than any company. There are areas of Microsoft that remain proprietary, of course. I think I talked about some of that stuff a week or two ago. This does a lot of damage to the perception that Microsoft is a good player in the open source world. And I think that's the broader issue.
Me too.
Aside from what I
think
feel
that's
like
the bigger issue.
We've spent a lot of time wondering aloud why the open source community can't wrap their head around the fact that Microsoft is a good player, is the right company to have GitHub and take care of that thing, that they are to be trusted and, are a good company. They're not the company they used to be. And something like this, unfortunately, I feel chips away at that perception. And it's unfortunate. This is really, really bad. This is a bad look for Microsoft today, I would say.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to win over, as they are, open source developers. You shouldn't take advantage of something that's open source. I don't think, I'm looking at the license, I don't think it requires that they make theirs open source, but they do need a notice in the about box giving him credit.
Well, it sounds like he's going to get it.
Yeah.
It also sounds like they're talking privately, and maybe they will do right by him.
Right.
And we will find out about that.
It is, but this happens, and it is always a little bit of an affront to the author of an open source work if a big, wealthy company comes along and says, "Hey, nice job, thank you. We're going to distribute that now." But
this
it
comes
happens
up a lot,
all the time.
AWS all the time, right? And a lot of the database companies, it does.
Well, I expect more from Microsoft.
Agreed.
They have to do a little better.
I really do feel that it is an ethical company.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've tried to tell people who've complained about, because I literally have heard from Tiger can't change his stripes.
Yeah.
Same old Microsoft. It's like I always use that example of like you still hold a grudge against Germany and Japan for World War II. I mean, like at what point do we get over this?
Right, but then this happens, and you're like, oh well, maybe.
But the thing to remind, look, this was one individual. This didn't. It's not like Satya Nadella is sitting in his castle, cackling and putting his fingertips together, wondering how he could screw the world over. And it's starting with this one individual. This was, Microsoft employs 155,000 people, I believe. Yeah. It is, when you talk about something the size and scope of Microsoft, you can't think of it as like this one living being with one will and one, strategy. And I mean, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, even
so hopefully,
even something like a package manager, like who knows how big the team at Microsoft is working on that? It's not probably one person. It's probably many people.
I'm thinking
right?
Satya Nadella kick the door in. He says, "I don't give a crap what you use. You steal it.
Get that package manager."
It's just not like it. It's not.
No.
And I'm just looking at some.
In the Steve Ballmer era, he would be like, "Ha ha, sucker!" Right? It would be he'd like take pride in it, right? He'd be like, "That's what we do. That's why we're good at what we do."
Kill cancer, you kill it with more cancer. Oh boy.
Yeah. So it's just a bad look, bad optics, but they didn't actually violate any licenses or do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Provided they provide.
Let's see how this ends, right? Let's see.
Yeah,
Let's see what happens.
Credit. We gotta give them credit.
I think this is going to end better than it started, but it.
Me too.
Yeah, it just should
but
never.
It was 2 steps back, half a step forward.
Have they? They haven't released it yet, though, right?
WinGet,
is it out?
Preview right now, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
preview. Came out at Build, right?
So if you have a copy, I would look at the About box, and it should say his name in there.
The first preview probably doesn't say anything like that, right? I think what they've said is we'll do right by you.
The Apache license is very forgiving. It doesn't have, for instance, and the viral stuff that the GPL has, which says you must make your product open source and offer the same terms to people who use your source code, that kind of thing.
But again, Microsoft.
Yeah.
No, but they should do the right thing. Yeah.
33 billion in revenues a quarter, an army of lawyers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus this guy who just out of the goodnesses of his heart, without any real research, picked a license. I mean,
well, that's why it's important to consider your license.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a particularly loose license, and I don't think he did it by accident. Honestly.
Well, yeah, you're probably right. But I mean, I also didn't. I'm sure he never thought Microsoft would come swooping down and just use it.
Yeah.
Well,
who knows? He might have wanted a job at Microsoft and thought this is a good way
to
get the
resume.
resume.
Kind of ambivalent about getting the job at Microsoft.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
He
said the reason he did it was he thought there were no good Windows package managers, and he said, "I'm a Windows user and I want a good package manager."
That's scratching his own itch. That's why most open source software is written.
Yeah.
You got to punish those people.
Yeah, punish them. Well, and I think if you're doing open source, you probably know, I would hope you would know the ramifications of various licenses. The fact that he chose such a relaxed license.
Well, but this is the difference between theory and reality. Like, you may go into it with open eyes and you have this idea of what this means, and then it happens, you're like, oh, actually, I don't like that.
Whoops.
Like, I mean.
Well, yeah, he probably didn't expect Microsoft to just kind of take it. Yeah.
Sure.
But that's open source. That happens.
Yeah.
Most of the time, what happens is you go, gosh, I'm so thrilled. This little project I did to scratch my own itch is now going to be used by millions, billions.
Yeah.
Well, I hope he has that experience, because I feel like that could be happening.
They should give him $20 and say thanks. It seems fair.
$20. Here's a certificate to the company store.
Give him like a satin jacket.
Get that bill discount.
I wrote WinGet.
Oh, yeah. Asterisk.
Yeah, that's the other thing we don't know is how much Microsoft changed it. It may be inspired by.
I believe it. I mean, obviously, it was well, maybe not obviously, but I believe it was rewritten in a different language. That was one of the things.
There you go.
People point to that, like, see, it's not exactly the same thing, and it's like,
well, that's a significant effort. That's not. That's not something you just go, here, let me just translate it. Yeah. That's
the one thing I'll say about this whole saga is Kevin Beigi, the guy who did AppGet. He is behaving like a gentleman and a scholar on this whole thing.
Good for him.
He is above the fray. He's being really respectful of all parties. He's showing that he's not happy about it, but he's not out there like slashing and burning and screaming about Microsoft. I'm never trusting them again. I'm going to be an Apple user now, right?
No.
They buy a Mac with all that money I didn't make from getting the job. No, you're right. You're right.
He's being great.
And I think that's part of the reason I find what he writes to be believable.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like he's out for revenge. He didn't seem like he was sure he even wanted to say this. He's like, I feel,
he's stopping development of AppGet, so he had to explain why am I stopped.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. And ironically, he wrote it in what he wrote it in C# or he wrote it in C# and Microsoft, which is Microsoft's own language, and they translated it to C++. So, honestly, it looks more and more
future.
Because he wrote it in C#. It looks more and more like here's a guy who loves Windows, and what he did. To his credit, is more than just the software. He got 1,400 packages to work with it. That's the real job of a package manager. Package manager is useless unless people use it and package up stuff and get once they're that's a lot of packages he did on his own. So he certainly deserves credit for that.
Obviously, at Microsoft, there are people who really like the open source stuff, and this is one of the things they looked at and realized was missing in Windows. And they looked at what was available, and they picked his. As the inspiration, we'll call it, for the thing they did. Redmond, start your photocopiers.
Hey, we said that last week when we were talking about Notepad.
Bastard stole my soap.
His blog post was called "The Day AppGet Died," so it's not completely without some.
No, he's sad because he was like into doing it, obviously, and spent a lot of time doing it.
Yeah. The story of how Microsoft embraced, then killed AppGet. However, I got to point out, the guy has a great-looking website. He made a great-looking website for AppGet. Yep. I'm going to guess the code is very nice. This is good for him in the long run. He will get a job offers. He will be able to do whatever he wants. So.
Even if it's not from Microsoft, somebody's going to say, let's hire that guy.
Yeah, I mean, the notoriety he gets from this is, frankly, gold, I would think.
Yep.
Well, I hope so, because he didn't get any from Microsoft.
No gold for you. Sorry. Windows 10 deprecated features.
I love the word deprecated.
I love it too. It's so good.
Yeah.
It sounds like, something, I don't know, deprecated.
Terrible?
Well, it's not as terrible as killed, deleted, destroyed.
Right.
It's just been deprecated. It's like...
Well, deprecated is like when you leave a kid behind at a rest area. Like,
no. That's abandoned.
He's been deprecated. I'm not saying he's dead.
This is more like deprecated is like, because usually the usual usage is we're going to continue to support it for a little while longer.
But we're getting rid of it over time.
It's, you shouldn't use this.
Right. We're advising you it's a bad idea if you keep using this.
I think the literal meaning of deprecate is to insult, right? Or to put down. But I don't think that's where deprecate.
I don't think
it's to express disapproval of.
Okay.
What I deprecate is persistent indulgence.
It's still supported, but it's no longer being updated.
Yeah.
Which,
that's
frankly, is like a lot of stuff in Windows.
Yeah, that's the geek term. Yeah.
There's one surprise in this list, by the way. The old Microsoft Edge is on the list, of course, right? They stopped working on that. They're doing the new version. I was surprised to see, not that I had heard about this in a while, but dynamic disks. They literally say is a feature that is no longer being developed. This is a feature that in NTFS that would let you have two physical drives or partitions, I guess, and treat them as a seamless single piece of storage.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a neat way in the old days when you might get a computer or a workstation or whatever with a relatively small disk. You wanted to add a second disk. You didn't want it to be a D drive. You just wanted it to continue. It's not RAID. It's nothing like that. It's not even RAID 0, but it's just a way to basically combine the two disks into a single, view or whatever of the combined storage. But I guess they're saying it's going to be replaced by storage spaces, which, by the way, is another kind of, I don't want to call it legacy feature, but it's still a control panel interface. This is storage spaces as itself, not particularly new. But this is the thing, basically, which grew out of the, what do you call it, the Windows Home Server technology. Remember they had that?
Oh, right.
You loved that. I remember you loved that. Yeah.
Right. There was storage spaces.
That was also deprecated.
Yeah. No,
Sure
storage
was,
spaces,
yeah.
storage spaces direct. Those two things came out around the same time, right?
Dynamic disk was cool. I'm kind of surprised to hear. Well,
I was too. Yeah, that one kind of surprised me. I mean, I guess I haven't thought about it in a while. I mean, this is, when you think about drives today, we get these drives that are so humongous.
Right.
the need, and of course we have as individuals even in some ways less need than ever for storage. So it's not something I've really thought about in a while, but
yeah,
it worked well. I mean,
they know, they have telemetry. They know how many people use any given feature. So,
yep.
What else?
The one I was surprised that was on here that I thought, didn't they deprecate this a long time ago? Windows to Go.
Oh, they did. So that one was removed.
I don't even know what is that, like briefcase? What is that?
Yeah, it was like briefcase, wasn't it? Yeah,
No,
similar.
it was
like
briefcase.
Also deprecated.
It was a Windows install on a USB key.
Oh,
right. No, you're right.
Yeah. So what you did was you plugged it into a computer.
Yeah.
And you could run it.
Use that processor and screen and keyboard. You could run it.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It required specially formatted USB disks. Remember, they used to have special Windows to Go USB keys.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they deprecate. This is how these things go. First you deprecate it, and then a couple of versions later you just remove it.
Then you
so now
poop on its head.
Then you leave it in the
sun
rest stop with
you
your
drive
child
off and waving.
I can tell you've been quarantined too long with your kids if you're talking about leaving them at the
don't
rest
pretend
stop.
you did it by mistake. You waved to them.
No, we meant to do this. Wow.
Where's Kelly? Oh, wait, we left her at the last exit.
Oh, well, got to move forward in life. That's. I don't know why that got dark like that, but yeah, Windows 2 is gone, and Cortana's gone. Cortana, the built-in feature,
right?
Because now they have the standalone app that will be gone a year from now.
Are they changing the name? They're changing the name, aren't they?
No,
they're not.
No,
still Cortana.
Which is like, come on, you need to do this, Microsoft, or I'm going to come up with something like.
If you leave Cortana at a rest stop, you should allow it to. It's emancipated now. Yeah.
No one notices.
No, I feel like it's so different now, right? The one that we have now that is going forward as of 2004, that's a strictly productivity type application that surfaces data inside things like Outlook and stuff. That has nothing to do with the original one, pretty much. And, so I feel like a new name.
Cortana Junior.
No, I feel like no name. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Or no name.
It doesn't
we
need
talked
a name because it's not a thing.
Cortana is
just say, "Hey, Microsoft."
Of other things.
Yeah.
You say, "Hey, Microsoft," exactly, or whatever the.
Hey, Windows, probably.
Yeah, whatever. Just something that you would think of that isn't a word that nobody uses or knows about.
Right.
Or hey, Cortex. I still like Cortex because it's going to be connected with that too.
Too close to Gore-Tex.
Oh yeah, true.
Trademark.
I don't mind Cortana being the name of a back-end service that we discuss as that kind of a thing, as infrastructure.
Right. But that's something you say, hey, blah.
It's probably really hard to come up with a trigger word that isn't in common use in some language somewhere somehow. That is also pronounceable.
You know what they had? They bought this trademark when they bought Bing, when they were going to do Bing. Kumo. Do you remember when they were going to do Kumo? Kuomo.
That might be a Japanese word, though.
I think it is for spider.
See? You don't, because then you're in a Japanese house and somebody goes, "Oh, it's a spider." And she goes, "Can I help you?" You don't want that.
You don't want it to be
and it also sounds a little like Cuomo, which you
Cuomo. Hey, Cuomo. Hey, what do you want? I'm here. Hey, Cuomo. Why don't we have? That's what we need. Honestly, they should have personal assistants that have personality, and then you could name them.
You should be able to name exactly. That's the thing.
Like Rodney.
You don't
hey,
have to
Rodney.
worry about a word that's a problem in another language. Just name it. Let people name the thing.
I still don't, because I know we can do it.
How do you want to trigger this?
Because it happened in the Motorola.
Yeah,
X
people can do it.
You could name, you could say, and I used to say, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi." That was my trigger. And I thought that was great. And it didn't get, it didn't happen in the real world. It was a good trigger. So I think they should let people do that. I still don't understand why nobody does that. Nobody lets you do your own.
I would use the name of the the Superman villain whose name you had to say backwards in order to get him to go to the other dimension. His name was like Mr. Mxyzptlk or whatever.
Oh, yeah. No, wasn't that from... That was Al Cap, wasn't it? Little Abner? Little Abner had a Mr.
He was a little alien guy.
Yeah.
He was from another dimension.
Was that? I thought it was Little Abner. Okay.
Actually, I think he had to say his name backwards in order to be sent back to the dimension. Trick him. You can see how hilarious this was.
Ha ha ha.
Yeah. It was a Superman villain.
Superman villain. Okay. Mxyzptlk. Mxyzptlk. Yeah, that's the chat room knows. I'll tell you what. Chat room is really good at comic book stuff. Anytime you got a question.
What's good about this too? It's like this name's impossible to spell. It's like Mississippi without any vowels. And yet I know whoever typed it in probably got it exactly right.
Mxyzptlk.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody would say that by accident or on purpose.
If you say it backwards, like it uninstalls it.
Oh, that would be good. Sometimes called Mr. Mixie, an impish character in Superman.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, they even have a pronouncer in on Wikipedia. Mxyzptlk.
Oh, see, I never would have gotten
Mxyzptlk. Okay, Mxyzptlk.
Didn't mean to grind this whole thing to a halt. Sorry.
No, it's my fault. I'm the one who took the bait and went with it.
Sure.
Any other deprecated features you want to talk about?
Yeah, that's the big stuff. There
Those
really
are
wasn't that much.
That's pretty good.
No.
Yeah. His first appearance was on Super Friends, by the way, in case you're interested.
Really? No, that's disappointing.
Yeah, I know. HP has gotten into the mixed reality headset game.
Okay. They never left, Leo. This is literally their third generation device.
Why would they do this?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. I thought we were not doing mixed reality headsets anymore.
Is it VR or AR or really mixed?
It's really VR. It's the Windows mixed reality platform, which is, well, yeah, it's VR.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess the big deal here is the resolution is significantly higher. I don't remember the original resolution, but of these devices, I want to say it was 1440p, or maybe that was the second gen. But now it's 2160 by 2160 in each eye, which is
that's pretty good.
Actually,
that's pretty good.
Actually good, yeah, and 90 hertz refresh rate, which
that's really good.
Really good. Like that's gaming good.
What's it compatible with?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So it's I don't.
The vast ecosystem of HP mixed reality games.
Jeez, I hope not.
No.
I don't believe this thing is shipping until much later in this year, and I'm actually sort of wondering if this isn't related or tied to something that might be coming in the next version of Windows, where they might, because we haven't really heard anything about.
No,
Windows
I thought they
reality.
had deprecated mixed reality headsets. I did. I thought because everyone came out with them, right? Like there were like 5 or 6 vendors came out with them. It went nowhere. Nobody continued. It just kind of fell off the cliff, right? So
it is worth mentioning, by the way, that in addition to Microsoft and HP kind of partnering or collaborating on this because it's an HP product, Valve is also involved. And Valve is Steam, right? They have a VR platform. It's also that one big VR game this year, the Alex Half-Life game. So this would work with that stuff for sure. It's not going to be it's not going to be just Windows mixed reality, but I don't think it's tied to any other major VR platform.
Yeah,
if there is such a thing.
It has nothing to do with Xbox Series X or any of that, right?
Nope.
I'd like to correct myself. Mr. Mxyzptlk first appeared in Superman 30 in 1944.
Oh. So I remember it from the comic books.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, no, I didn't. I mean, I didn't remember when it debuted, but I wasn't around.
It was in Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman, and yes, of course, in Super Friends, but goes farther back than that.
Super Friends was the shape of a ice thing, form of a water thing. That was the
I don't know.
The Wonder Twins, wasn't it? Super Friends.
If it's not in Wikipedia, I don't know.
I think that's what Super Friends said.
Reading from Wikipedia.
The brother sister was like Donnie and Marie.
By the way, his name pronounced backwards is Mxyzptlk. And that's when he goes back for 90 days to his home dimension.
Right. Yeah. He actually kind of looked like Steven Sinofsky. Now that I'm thinking about it.
It does. You're right.
You know?
Oh my God. Let's get back on track, Leo.
Sorry.
Bad. No, not your fault. How about let's talk about some Edge, the new Microsoft Edge. Did we get it with 2004? No, you didn't get anything.
Nope.
You were thwarted. But
by the way, people seem to be confused about that too.
Yeah,
I know.
Why?
Yep.
But you got to remember, this is a timing issue because 2004, from a code perspective, like a feature perspective, was completed 6 months ago. And you know, Microsoft Edge didn't ship in stable form until January. I know you could make this case, but you're not going to ship the January version of Microsoft Edge in this product. So, I mean, our guess is that it will probably appear in 20H2, right, as a built-in feature. But between now and then, aside from the manual downloads, what they have to do is deploy it automatically to people via Windows Update. And apparently that just started this week.
Yeah, today or yesterday, right? So the really kind of strange thing here is it's starting with people who are running Windows 10 1803 or 1809. So maybe that's because that's a smaller group of people and they can make sure it's working correctly. Maybe. No one knows why. There's no explanation. And it seems to like it's going to be coming soon to the later versions like 1903, 1909, 2004 through Windows Update soon, because they posted support articles that make it look like this is going to happen soon.
Yeah, I don't know if we've discussed this ever, but Microsoft likes to do these things slowly.
Yeah, they do.
That's their new thing.
And, you know, that's not a bad strategy.
No,
to be honest.
But Windows Update has been around since, what, 1998? I mean,
no, and you could, and people who wanted, people who wanted to go and seek the stable version of Edge, they could do that starting in January, right? So now we're starting to see Windows Update roll out in June. The original plan was going to be just a few weeks after January's announcement. They were going to start rolling it out, and then the pandemic hit, and I think everything was just kind of put on hold then.
I'm glad they waited,
in terms of rushing. Me too.
Obviously,
I am too.
Yeah, not everything is there. We still don't have history sync, and I think the open tab sync. But we do have extension sync, and that's one of the ones that really would have bit people with multiple computers, especially.
Right.
Or you come off. I don't know how it handles extensions now, but if you have Legacy Edge installed with certain extensions, do those appear in?
Automatically show up. I think they do, don't they?
I really don't know.
Yeah, I think I read that they do, but I'm not 100% sure. And then I've had a few people ask me about server. You know, how's Microsoft going to push the new Edge to server? And I think it's going to be the same way they're doing it to client, but I've asked just to be sure, and I haven't heard back.
You know, it's a server, not a surfboard, Mary Jo. Just saying.
Words to live by, Paul.
Is this a reference to something I should know?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Back when
what is it a reference?
Windows XP Service Pack 2, they added the firewall to Windows client, right? And this is the thing that should have been a new version of Windows, but they decided to make it free service pack so everybody could get it. There's a related server release that happened at the same time called Windows Server 2003. And previous to that, the server was treated just like the client. Like you get the full UI, you would get the browser, and the browser was a major avenue of attack. And so I don't remember what this feature was called, but you will remember there was some kind of protection on IE at the time where by default, if you browsed anywhere outside of your own domain, it would be blocked. And you had to turn that feature off if you wanted to use your server like you would normally as a client. And the phrase inside the server group at Microsoft at that time was, "It's a server, not a surfboard."
I'm glad I asked. Actually, I Googled it, and it turns out it was the title of episode 251 from March 2012.
That's awesome. That's funny.
Yeah. So when people Google that, that's the first thing they're going to find.
Yeah.
Mastering Microsoft Exchange.
It's probably
server.
I did that Road to Gold series back then about Windows Server. It's probably in that series somewhere.
That's so funny.
I don't know why it went through my head that it was going to be. It's a server, not a skateboard, because of the Windows 8 skateboard connotation.
No, that's the phrase. There is. It's a Surface, not a skateboard.
Oh,
right. There you go. There you go. Except the Surface was a skateboard for a brief moment of time.
If you're a little man, it might work.
Like Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's how they got rid of him.
That's where
they got him to say his name backwards.
Surface.
They finally tricked him into say his name backwards and he left.
So you are going to get it with Windows Update if you have 1803 as old as 1803.
So it's 1803 and 1809.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the start. Yep.
Okay. Then 1903 and 1909 will be next, and then 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So by what? 2032, we'll finally get the same.
Yeah, maybe we'll all have it. Yeah, maybe.
Well, you might want to use it.
Yeah, I recommend.
And you also can block it if your organization's not ready or you don't want it. There's a blocker toolkit for it, so you don't have to have it.
Why wouldn't you want it? I mean, isn't it better than?
Yep.
Well, some people don't want Edge at all. Like they standardize their company on Chrome or whatever.
I will say there are a few features missing that were in the legacy version that were useful. I got used to using Edge for reading PDFs. It was actually a very full-featured.
Yeah, that makes me mad. I liked that.
Yeah,
what, the read aloud PDF thing?
No, just having open PDFs in Edge. Yeah, just opening them.
Worked really well.
You didn't need Adobe Reader.
Right. Like it was actually a good app for that. Like it supported the table of contents and had a bunch of stuff that is just missing in the new version. I mean, they may add it over time, but and it had some tab management features that are missing in action.
They did have problems. Remember, there was a bug in an Adobe renderer that they had to get rid of. I wonder if that's related. Anyway, that's another story for another day. Let's talk about Google and Incognito mode. Here's a reason you might want to use Edge. They're being sued. I don't know if it really is legit that they are tracking users. I mean, they are, right? Well, Incognito mode never said Google wouldn't know.
This is a claim. So Google's defense is like, look, we never said that some people, some organizations, your ISP, et cetera, couldn't see what you're doing. So if you go into like Pornhub or something, like, you're not necessarily protected. The idea is we're keeping people who use your computer from seeing this kind of stuff.
It even says it when you get you've gone Incognito.
You got to look at the actual complaint, though, because what they're saying is that Google has built in advertising telemetry specifically designed to track people even when they're in incognito mode.
Right.
Even when they specifically take steps to hide their activities, including steps that Google says will stop this activity.
Oh, well,
so that's the that's the complaint. And potential class action in the millions. This is obviously a U.S. suit. So we'll see what happens. I would say if you want to sue Google, this is a good time to do it. This is a company that is under a lot of antitrust scrutiny right now.
Yeah, let's go get them. Let's go get them.
Well, the rationale being, in other words, you could get money, but I mean, if that's what you're after, I mean, good. But if you actually want to change the behavior of a company like Google or Apple or Amazon right now, it's a good time to complain because you're starting to see changes occur because they don't want to go to court. They don't want they don't want antitrust problems. They'd like to put this behind them. So if you're seeking actual behavioral change, isn't necessary.
Give it a whirl.
Strategy.
Just to clarify, does Edge still read PDFs or is that gone completely?
It does still read PDFs.
I was wondering that too.
It does.
Right?
It does.
Okay.
It's very basic. It doesn't have a lot of the features that were available.
Okay.
I believe actually that read aloud is there, but I can look that up.
I think it is or will be soon. I saw that on the roadmap. Yeah.
I think it is there, but let me see. Yeah, let me just open this thing up. So, for example, like when I open my book file in the old Edge, I would get the table of contents view that I could pull down and I could go jump to a specific chapter or whatever. That's missing in action here.
So it's just dumbed down.
Actually, read aloud is not here. I'm sorry. So read aloud is not there.
Okay.
But
I think it's coming soon. I do.
Yeah. I think they're definitely gonna improve it, right?
Yeah. Right.
But it's like the one thing I actually really liked about the old Edge,
and made me really happy. Yeah.
And now I miss it.
Yeah.
I wish I could launch it just to use that.
Anything not to install Adobe. basically.
So I actually, okay, you're right. And so I actually started using a program. I should maybe this could be my app pick of the week. Is I've been using a program I used to use called Foxit Reader.
Love Foxit,
which is free. And but again, one of the things, and it's fine, it works fine, but it's got a lot of stuff, and Adobe Reader does too.
Yeah. Edge was very clean. Yeah,
and it just seemed light and fast, and it
just did it.
Pretty much did. Yeah.
Just got out of
so
the
I
way.
hope they get that back.
Yeah. Well, here's something you're going to get back if you're using a Chromium browser. Windows spell check. So this is true. Microsoft back in March announced this Microsoft Editor thing, right? It's their Grammarly ripoff, right? And now they're putting spell check into Chrome. And I got to say, the one thing I really have noticed this year, and I mean this, Microsoft blog posts of all kinds, not just the insider guys, but like I've seen this with the Edge team. I've seen it. You don't really see it on like the Microsoft 365 blog or the upper level executive blog, but a lot of the blog posts that are just made by like people at Microsoft are full of spelling and grammar errors. And I'm serious. Like it's something I've never noticed before. And it's become a problem. And because I'll pull a quote out of something that they write so I can quote it in my own story, and Grammarly lights up like a firecracker. Like there's all kinds of problems. Then you keep having to put 666 in.
Yeah.
So annoying.
They're using their own stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of boggles the mind that a company that has had a word processor since like 1983 or whatever it is, it can't outdo like an internet startup when it comes to like spelling and grammar checking it. Kind of amazing. Anyway, that goodness will be coming to all Chromium browsers as part of this spell check API that they have committed to Chromium. One of the, I don't remember the number. I don't know, Mary Jo, if you remember at Build, they were talking about the number of commits that the Microsoft has made.
I don't remember how many. It's a lot.
It's
many.
Crazy. It's not hundreds. It's several thousand.
I know. Yeah, it's a lot.
So this is one of them, I guess.
And one that you're not happy about, I can tell.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it better than nothing? I don't know.
Microsoft 365 news. I'm guessing this comes from the fine pen of Mary Jo Foley.
No, it does not.
I guessed wrong.
So you're welcome to take it if you would like. It's kind of interesting.
I did see this. Yeah, I saw this. And what's interesting here is Samsung and Microsoft had a partnership before Microsoft had committed to doing its own Android device. For a while they were bundling some Microsoft apps with Samsung devices and offering people discounts. They still are doing that? Okay.
Yeah, so like the S20 line has
it still does. Okay.
Microsoft apps,
So this is the Galaxy S20 handset where you can get this subscription that entitles you to a Microsoft 365 personal account as part of the Samsung Access plan. So I'm like, okay, they're still doing some things together.
Yeah, and I it must have been back in whatever that was, October, November, when they announced the Duo and Neo, and everyone, there were these questions. Well, what does this mean for your relationship with Samsung? And they said, oh no, they said, if anything, we're going to expand this. We're like, expand it how? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And
it's because they continue to pretend the Duo's not a phone, so they feel like it's not an overlapping set of offers. Yeah.
So the reason to me that this offer is interesting, because it is a subscription service. You pay a monthly fee, you get a phone, right? And these phones start at $1,000, right? That's the cheap.
They're the high end phones, right?
Yeah,
but I should point out, nobody's buying the S20.
Right.
Premium phones.
Well, some premium phones, but the S20 has been a big flop.
Yeah, it sold less than half, I think, what the previous version did. Yeah. So, launching a $1,400 phone in the, on the outset of a pandemic.
Yeah.
It's classic. But this is actually a pretty good deal if you do want this kind of a phone, because in it you get the S20 of your choice. You get the premium support from Samsung. You get a Microsoft 365 personal subscription, right? And if you do the math on all this stuff, you're actually paying a lot less if you want all those things, right? I mean, you're paying less than you would if you bought them separately. But it's also a month-to-month thing. So you can cancel this at any time. You can also upgrade to a different phone, I think, every 9 months. So when the Note, whatever it's called, 30 or whatever they're calling it, 21, whatever, comes out in August, if you want to, well, you couldn't do it in August, but maybe in December, January, whatever, you could upgrade to that. February comes, maybe they change the term of the deal or whatever it is, and you can say, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. And you have to send the phone back, obviously, but you're done. Like, there's no closing costs. You don't pay off anything. You just give it back. And I mean,
So how much a month is this?
Yeah, so it's not super inexpensive because you have to kind of do the math on, like, what does this stuff actually cost? Like, if you bought a $1,000 phone and you were going to, you'd probably pay for that over 2 years, but it could be even longer than that, right? You know, how much would that be per month if you weren't trading in a phone, you know? So I walked through this. The cheapest version of this is $37 a month. So it's the phone. Remember the premium support. Premium support is usually, I have it in here somewhere, is where is it? It's it's $12 to $20 a month per device. So for that device, probably $12 a month. And then Microsoft 365 Personal is billed at $584 a month. So we're talking 12, 17, 18 bucks not for the phone. So 37 minus that, we're talking about $19 for the phone, basically. That's cheaper than the cost would be. You could get a $1,000 phone for $19 a month.
Right.
So it's actually pretty good. Still 37 bucks a month. I mean, if you want the really expensive one, the $1,400 phone, it's $48 a month.
Okay.
That's still cheap, though, compared to paying your phone off over time.
Right.
Yeah, and
it's month to month. You can cancel at any time.
Right, which is great.
That's nice. Yeah.
Which is the key to this. They also have a version of this for smart TVs, by the way. And in that case, instead of Microsoft 365, what you get is your choice of various entertainment and gaming services.
Oh, that's cool.
One of which, by the way, is Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So Microsoft is involved in that end too. But I guess the question here is, remember when Apple came out with the iPhone upgrade program probably 3 years ago-ish or 4 years ago-ish? And at that time, I thought that was kind of brilliant because people were upgrading their phone, in some cases every year, just to get the latest phone. And this was a way to constantly have kind of the new phone every year. And I thought that was seemed like a good idea at the time. I would say today, people are kind of stretching out the phone. They like paying it off and then using it, which, by the way, financially is a very sound strategy. I don't know if this kind of treadmill of never not paying something every month for something is going to be appealing to people. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, the phones have not sold as well as the previous phones because of the situation and the cost. So this, in some ways, you could argue is an interesting way. What do we got to do to get you into
to try
an
to
S20
get people to do
today?
it?
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like offering a lease, except it's like, can you imagine a car lease where you're like, I used it for 3 months and I'm done, and you just give it,
That's what's really
always trade
interesting.
up. Yeah.
I think they're probably hoping you're not going to do that because what is the value of a 3-month-old Samsung Galaxy S20?
Samsung phone, it's $37. Yeah. Those things decline in value really
very quickly.
You thought the car was bad, you drove it off the lot, like a Samsung phone. The Samsung phone is only good. A used Samsung phone is only good for one thing, other than using it, which is trading it in for a new Samsung phone. Because then they do.
They always do.
I mean it.
They do good
give you a good
trade-ins.
deal.
Yeah.
That's where you get a lot of value for that phone. But beyond that, not much.
Let's do a little Xbox news. Mary Jo, if you'd like to go feed the kitties.
Wow.
We call it Xbox news. Mary Jo Foley calls it beer time.
Yeah, that would be good.
What do we got today, Paul?
I always feel compelled to keep this as quick as possible.
No pressure.
I like it.
She's enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. Everybody enjoys it. Take your time.
I'm not trying to hurt anybody. No, there's not that much going on. Microsoft, is part of their kind of dribble strategy on the Xbox Series X, has revealed in the past week that it will be the most compatible console ever. They're doing that backward compatibility thing. So it will play all Xbox One games. It will play all backward compatible games that are available today on the Xbox One, going back to the original generation Xbox. That's awesome. To me, that's Xbox today. That's what makes Xbox special. I think that's great. They're also doing that thing where basically, not every game, I guess, but well, no, I should say every game will be better in some way when played on a Series X. And now that sounds kind of familiar because we heard that claim when the Xbox One started backward compatibility. The way that those games will be made better is, at the very least, faster load times, better frame rates, right? In some cases, they're actually adding HDR to games that didn't have HDR in the beginning, which is kind of cool. The other fun thing about this to me, though, is like right when Microsoft announced this, of course, people went to Sony and they said, well, what are you guys going to do for the PlayStation 5? And they were like, well, eventually we're going to release a system update that will let you play some PlayStation 4 games. It's like, okay, so Microsoft, as good as backward compatibility can be, Sony, we'll get there, someday. So
someday.
There you go. On the good news front for Sony, they did announce, I think it might have been part of their quarterly earnings, that they've actually started manufacturing the PlayStation 5. Microsoft has not made such an announcement, but they could be waiting for one of their regularly scheduled announcements to talk about that. But
Sony was going to, as you remember, do a big thing this week, showing off games, and I think they wisely decided that really isn't a good look.
Yeah, Google and Sony both canceled events, and SpaceX took off like nothing was happening. Although you got to understand, those guys probably wanted to get the hell out of here. So,
Doug and Bob said, "See ya."
I mean, hopefully they didn't bring the coronavirus.
Honestly, I'm glad SpaceX did it because it was kind of uplifting, right? We went right back down to earth, but it was kind of uplifting to see that. It reminded us that humans can do something.
Are you suggesting that it was more uplifting than the Android 11 beta announcement that was going to happen?
I don't know. That's a close one.
Come on, Leo.
Oh, man. Oh, man. And finally, there's a new guide.
Yeah, and what's the guide? So if you're familiar with the Xbox One, I apologize. The interface is terrible. It's always been really slow. I don't know why. They can play the fastest games in the world, but you get back to the UI, and it's like you're walking through mud with boots on. The guide is the thing that comes up when you hit the Xbox button, the thing that lights up white on the controller.
Yeah.
So it's that overlay that comes down, and it gives kind of quick access to your most recent games, people you played against recently in the store, your game library, et cetera. So like they did previously to the dashboard, which is the rest of that UI, that multi-screen interface, they've streamlined the design of this so that it's quicker to get to the things that people want to use the most. So the way they've, again, they can't make the thing faster, but they can cut down on the number of steps, and that makes it faster. So it's like, it takes me a long time to get to the store, so we're going to move the store closer to your house. See, now it's faster.
It's faster. All right. Well, I'll play with it tonight. I'll go home. I still haven't installed Microsoft Dungeons. I got to do that. Did it come out?
Minecraft Dungeons.
Minecraft Dungeons.
It's out. Yeah, it is out. It is out.
I'm disappointed. I thought we would be hunting Steven Sinofsky in a cave below the Redmond Microsoft campus.
Yeah, he could, instead of the Keiko demon, it could be Steven Sinofsky's. It's a server, not a surfboard. It's a server, not a surfboard.
That might get me to play Xbox.
All right, let's take on this thing.
Let's take a little break as we imagine what a Microsoft dungeon would be like. And then we'll come back with the back of the book in just a second. Our show today brought to you by Barracuda. Security becomes so important when you send employees home, when they're working from home, because they're still working at work in a way, right? They're VPNing in, or at some point they're going to bring those laptops back to work, attach them to the network. And what the last thing you want is for an employee who's been happily ensconced at home, bringing in a laptop and then setting off a time bomb that encrypts all your data. Barracuda is a name everybody knows. Best name in computer security. Provider of cloud-enabled enterprise-grade security solutions to protect it all. Email, networks, data, applications. So suddenly you've got hundreds, maybe thousands of employees. They're working remotely. Every one of them is getting tons of email every day, and that email is a threat. 91% of all cyber attacks start in an email. We're talking spear phishing, ransomware, account takeover, conversation hijacking. So 91% times thousands of emails times hundreds of employees. You got some idea of the threat surface here. One click, one wrong email Can cost you money, can cost you customers, can cost you your reputation. This is a real threat. Fortunately, Barracuda's here with their total email protection. All-in-one email security, backupping and archiving for Microsoft users, for Exchange users. In fact, I'll tell you in a little bit, you can get a free email threat scan of your Office 365 account. And I'll tell you how to do that in a second. Barracuda Total Email Protection. There's a blog. They have a great blog, by the way. Just a side note, I would recommend visiting the site. I was reading a post that said, because they do this for a lot of big companies, they see a lot of email, a spike in spear phishing attacks related to the coronavirus, 667% since the end of February. Massive spike. Impersonating the World Health Organization, impersonating the boss. That's a great way to get a work-from-home employee to open an email. Hey, I need this spreadsheet done in 2 hours. Get on it. And they're in a hurry, and they click it, and it's not a spreadsheet. It's a spear phishing attack. Barracuda Total Email Protection does all-in-one email security, backupping, and archiving. Archiving is important. A lot of businesses, you have a legal obligation to store your email, right, for some years, sometimes as many as 7 years. AI-based protection from spear phishing, account takeover, business email compromise. And the reason it's important to have this AI-based is you can't do rules-based because it's changing all the time. Hackers are so savvy, they're constantly modifying their attacks to get around protections. So you have to have software that's smart enough to adapt to this current situation. There's also automated incident response, so you or your team, your IT team, can work quickly and efficiently to address attacks. That's important too, because if the employee opens that email, if you can shut that down at the source right away, then you can save the company. They also do something I love, security awareness training, so your workforce gets smarter about what not to do. They are, in fact, the first line of defense, aren't they? That's where the attacks are happening. They're the attack surface. You got to train them. Barracuda does it all. Ensure the safety and security of your business. This is just one of many Barracuda tools, but this one's a great one. And they'll give you a free threat scan in your Office 365 account right now if you go to barracuda.com/windows. No obligation, no risk. barracuda.com/windows. Wouldn't you like to know, is there anything in my email that could be dangerous to the company? You can do this for free right now. barracuda.com/windows. We thank Barracuda for supporting our company, protecting our company, protecting you. Barracuda is your journey secured. barracuda.com/windows. Use that address. I've said that before. Sometimes people use /twit or something. No, use Windows if you would, because that way they know you heard it here, and that helps the show. barracuda.com/windows. Now, Paul Thurrott.
Speaking of drop quotes, Leo, use Windows if you would, Leo Laporte.
Use Windows if you would. If you will, please. I'm talking the offer code.
I'm putting that on my book.
Use Windows if you would. So I love your tip of the week is just basically one word.
Yeah, it's a White Lion song from the 1980s, but it's also something that hasn't come up here in a while, which is, people will come to me and say, should I install Windows 10 version 2024? 2004. And the answer is, if you're asking me that question, no. So you should wait. And for all of the kind of fury that is happening in the community, and it's been kind of weird for me to watch this because I'm usually the one leading the charge with the torch. People who are technical and you need Windows subsystem for Linux too for your work, you can handle it. Don't worry about it. Just go get it. But for most of us, there's nothing major happening here, so there's no reason to introduce any potential instabilities by manually downloading the ISO or whatever, just upgrading, which you could do. Don't do
wait.
That. Just wait.
Just wait.
Just wait.
Just wait. Yeah. No reason to rush.
So, there's no reason. There's no reason. I mentioned Foxit Reader, or Fox. I think it's called Foxit Reader. You should look that up if you need a PDF app. It's honestly, it's probably not much better than Adobe at this point, but I can't stand installing Adobe Reader. So
No.
If you need some of the other PDF features like I do, like I need table of contents. It's crucial for what I do. So I need that feature. That's why I installed it. It's a good choice. But in light of the latest Chrome news, I guess, I just wanted to remind people of something that came up probably a couple months ago, which is, I think it's time for us to really think collectively as a user base about not using Google Chrome. And there are a lot of better choices, and that list of better choices includes every other browser in the market. So I think for most Windows users, Edge is probably the best choice, but you have a lot of things to look at, and you should experiment with all of these things. Brave, Opera, Vivaldi are all Chromium-based browsers if you like the kind of Google Chrome experience, but you don't want that tracking stuff. Those will all provide that. Firefox, perennially, always a great choice. And I kind of like the notion of just supporting the open web. I mean, Firefox is a great company.
Yeah, I'm a Firefox user. Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, and if you're on the Mac or whatever,
Safari's fine.
Safari's fine. Yeah.
I haven't used Chrome in a long time. In fact, I stopped using Gmail a couple of years ago. I mean, you can't do Google, but you don't have to be all in on Google either.
Well, the problem with being all in on Google is you don't realize you're all in on Google. I think that's the issue with the tracking. I mean, what this latest, this class action wannabe lawsuit is, the issue they're raising is you think you're turning off Google tracking. It literally says click here to turn it off. And they're still allowing the advertising through. You got to remember, this is a company, I think in the latest quarterly results, if I remember correctly, 82% of the revenues come from advertising. This product exists to deliver ads. Right. That's why it's there.
Right.
So think.
Think. You gotta think. Another great song by White Lion. White Lion.
Hey, Wait is a great song.
Wait.
Yep.
I gotta listen to it.
Yep.
Enterprise pick of the week from Mary Jo Foley.
I, like Paul, I believe, I'm still going through the build sessions because there are so many, and there were so many build announcements we didn't get through. I was looking at some of their bot announcements that they made at Build, which I didn't cover at the time. And there's some pretty significant ones, actually, that people who've been kind of reticent to try Microsoft's bot framework tool and Azure bot service, you might want to take a look. The reason I say that is there's a couple new things. There's a virtual assistant solution accelerator that is now generally available. So if you are building virtual assistants, you now can add in these skills like calendar and to-do and who really easily so that you can customize and fine-tune bots that you build using Microsoft technology. And the Virtual Assistant Accelerator is open sourced and on GitHub. Also, the Bot Framework Composer. So this is something like a low-code, no-code kind of design tool for people who want to build bots, but you think, I don't really know how to do that. It's available for Windows, for Mac OS, and Linux, and there's even a web-based component version of this composer tool available. And this also went generally available as a build. And the third thing I want to cite, and I want to cite the person who's been spearheading it, is a new technology that lets you use the Microsoft Bot Framework to write Alexa skills, which is kind of interesting. So, Microsoft and Alexa had that partnership, but Microsoft never really made its tools available to write bots or services for Alexa. And now they are publishing code to do that. And the person who's been spearheading this is our friend Gary Pretty, who now works for Microsoft. And he's been very much instrumental in getting the bot framework service for Alexa skills out there and ready for people to try. So if you're one of those people who've been like, yeah, bots, I want to try building them, but it's too hard, I think it's time you give it another look.
Interesting. That's cool. Azure bot service. Azure service.
She's right. You really should be going through that build list. There's an astonishing array of content there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Neat.
And if you want to see, I think we've said this before, but if you want to see all the announcements the way we get to see them, just do a search for the Microsoft Build 2020 Book of News. It's out there. It's available to everybody to download. And you'll see how many announcements there were. There were like 50 pages of announcements.
Wow. That's great.
And anybody can go look at them.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Love it. And I love your code name of the week, too.
I know. This is a very interesting code name because Microsoft's gotten kind of boring about their code names lately. But this one is interesting and funny. The code name is Bicep. The thing that it's a code name for is not so interesting or funny, but
I hope it's muscular at least.
Yes, it's very muscular. It's a new desired state language that Microsoft is building for Azure Resource Manager.
Oh, I get it.
And if you
I get it.
If you want to read all about this, the person who tipped me to the code name, Aidan Finn, friend of Paul's and mine, he has a very good article on Petri about everything you need to know about Azure infrastructure from build, and he talks about this code name.
Azure
so Bicep
Research Management is ARM.
ARM, get it?
That's
ARM,
where
but not ARM, not
ARM.
ARM like the
That's
other.
why they call
ARM,
it Bicep, right?
That's right.
Not to
right.
confuse.
So,
you. Yeah.
not to be confusing, but yeah, this is a new language they're building. They said they're trying to get towards preview within the next 2 to 3 months, and it's all about no longer needing to write JSON. There's modularity. It's going to be open source. Readability is a top priority. So if you're someone who deals with Azure Resource Manager, you may want to go read this article and check out Bicep.
And I have to say, any really code name worth its spit would have an emoji associated with it. So Bicep,
I know.
There is a Bicep
Oh,
emoji.
yes.
I think you should always
Yeah.
check to make sure
I think
your
you should
code
always
name
use that.
has an emoji.
Exactly. I like it.
Before we can do the beer pick, do you mind if I just have two quick
Breaking
late
news.
breaking
No, go
news items?
Breaking
Go
news.
ahead.
Where's our breaking news sounder?
Today in Europe, they when WinGet was announced, the supposition was that the store was going to change into a front end for that, and that is definitely going to happen. It's going to happen on the Xbox side too. So the Xbox store as a front end to this WinGet thing has apparently leaked. It's codenamed Mercury, and Mehdi has a story, and I'm sure other people do too. Also, for those people, I don't know if this is US only. I've gotten a lot of questions about this, but apparently those who pre-registered to go to build some of them at least I did, got an email afterwards that said, hey, we're going to send you this credit. It's not a credit, I'm sorry. It's an ability to go into the Microsoft store and buy stuff as if you were an employee. Up to $250 you can spend. The things you buy are 50 to 80% off.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a really good deal.
Sadly, this looks like US only right now, I think. But
yeah, I think so. Those emails have finally gone out. If you were wondering where that was and hadn't gotten it yet, you should be getting an email today.
Go ahead, Chris Capicella. Go on over to that Microsoft store.
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious why is it US only though? Because a lot of these things are digital assets, right? They're not hardware.
All of them are.
Right?
It's all digital.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like Office Microsoft 365 Home or personal subscriptions for I think the home one was $30 or something. It's a really good deal. So anyway, if you do get if you've been waiting, those emails have started to go out.
Nice. Somebody in the chat room says they just got that email.
Yeah.
All right. Now we did some beer from Mary Jo Foley.
Yes. This is a little snarky beer pick of the week. The beer pick is called Slack Tide Brewing Angry Osprey IPA. The reason I made this the beer pick is because of the name Slack. And if you've been watching the news lately, the CEO of Slack, Stuart Butterfield, is a little angry about how Microsoft is trying to get his company to compete. He feels like, he's been seeding these stories, he and his team, about Microsoft. They're actually trying to kill us. They're not trying to do something nice for their customers. They're trying to compete with us. And you know what I got to say?
How dare they?
That's what companies do.
That's what companies do.
It's not a charitable organization. It's not a church group. It
is not.
I'd be,
no.
Yeah, well.
So I think he's acting like an angry osprey. And I read about this beer. It's from Cape May, New Jersey. It's won all kinds of awards because it's a very good representation of the West Coast IPA style, and it's hopped with Citra and Centennial, and it sounds like if I can find this beer, I will lift it and toast Stuart Butterfield.
So this would be the first Slack you ever used.
Yes.
No, I've used Slack before, but this would be a delightful use of Slack.
And I love it that Slack Tide has a hop in its name. There's a nice, beautiful hop.
Oh, that's not an avocado.
Well, it could be a pineapple, but I think it's a hop.
No, I think it's a hop, guys.
So they are a hoppy beer.
Yep.
That concludes this thrilling, gripping edition of Windows Weekly.
You don't see a lot of avocado beers.
Oh, I bet Mary Jo could find you one for next week if you really
I don't know. That
want it.
doesn't sound good. But
We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 1700 UTC. If you want to tune in and watch, please, we invite you to do so. The streams, audio and video, are at twit.tv/live. They're all different sources, so we just aggregate them all there, and you can choose the one you like. If you're watching live, chat with us live, irc.twit.tv. But if you want to get on demand, you can do that too. That's at the website, twit.tv/dubdub for Windows Weekly. There's a YouTube channel. You can watch it there, subscribe there if you want. Although my favorite way to listen, and I encourage you to do this, is to get a podcast application of some kind and subscribe within that. That way you always have the episode. You know, turn on the auto download. You'll always have the episode. Whenever you're in the mood to do a little Windows Weekly, don't wait. Listen. Thank you, Paul. Paul Thurrott at Thurrott.com. His books, The Field Guide to Windows 10, newly updated for 2004. I want to call it 2004.
Yeah.
That would be fun. 2004.
How do you say the Ubuntu style? Do you actually say 20.04 or do you?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Because that seems a little ponderous to say, but
yeah, because they do the same thing as Microsoft does now. 2004.
Well, but maybe that's all. That's what you need to know that it's 2004.
I think they say 2004 is what they do.
Yeah.
I don't remember people saying the dot. Yeah.
Right.
2004 it's fine. It's good. Yeah. It's version 2004. Because there'll be
I like the dot
2009.
idea. It's good.
20.04.
Yeah, the dot idea is very
nice. They've been stealing from open source all week. Why not? Why stop at WinGet?
I believe that's also, Apache license.
I think they can fork this, can't they?
Fork it.
Fork it.
Fork it.
I mean, steal from a company at least.
Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Paul Thurrott, leanpub.com for his books. Mary Jo Foley, all about Microsoft.com. And we will come back next week and do this all over again. Thank you, you two. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Hey folks, I am Micah Sargent, co-host of Tech News Weekly right here on the Twit Network. Yes, Tech News Weekly is a show we do every week, Jason Howell and myself, where we talk to people who are making and a break in the tech news. That's right, it's journalists, it's inventors, it's app makers, it's everybody who's bringing the tech news in a given week. It's all the stuff you want to know about in bite-sized chunks in a fantastic package. So be sure to subscribe. It's twit.tv/TNW.